Harley Reid is not the Messiah, but he has been a very naughty boy. The West Coast Eagles wonderkin leads the AFL for free kicks against after round 17 with 46. He was fourth in the competition last season with 47 from 20 games. But that's not the only reason Harley is in the naughty corner. His on-field indiscretions are costing him in the pocket, losing an estimated $68,000 in fines, match payments and ineligibility for awards such as the Rising Star, which is worth $40,000 alone. There is plenty to like about the Eagles' number 9 on the field, but it comes with a high price. Across town, Fremantle faces a must-win clash with Hawthorn if it is to stay in touch with the top 8. And it comes after Andrew Brayshaw's concession that Dockers midfield has lost its team focus and is playing more like individuals. Welcome to the West Sports Show. We are brought to you by Tab Touch. Got the touch? Download the Tab Touch app today. What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. Joined as always on a Tuesday by Craig O'Donoghue. Cod, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Quarters was a very, very, very early start yesterday coming back from Sydney. When the alarm goes off at 2 a.m. Perth time, 4 a.m. in Sydney, you know you're alive, but it's good to be back.
Rookie error, Cod. You've got to change your flights.
I would have liked to have changed that flight. I'll give you the hot tip. Last night at dinner time, I was ready for bed.
Now, you'll have to excuse me today. I do have a touch of the man flu, but I will soldier on, mate.
Because you're a tough human.
That's
you're
right.
a tough man.
Because I am Hawthorn.
Fair income.
But, Cod, I want to talk to you about Harley Reid.
Yes.
So I've just mentioned leading the competition for free kicks against with 46 from 17 games. He was fourth most for free kicks against last year with 47 from 20 games. But he's costing himself in the pocket as well.
Yeah, Harley's clearly earning too much money. I mean, he's earning a lot of money because he's got all these sponsorship endorsements and things like that. But I went back and had a look at it. After seeing that he received a $3,750 fine over the weekend for engaging in rough conduct towards Xavier O'Halloran, I thought, I wonder how much money he's actually cost himself. So I went back through all of the match review incidents and added up what it had all been. So from round 1, 2024, $1,250 for umpire contact. Round 12, 2024, 2 incidents, $1,875 for both for umpire contact. In the same game, he was reported for engaging in rough conduct on Darcy Wilson. That cost him 2 matches. And given he's on match payments, that's $4,000 per match, add $8,000 to the kick. It also made him ineligible for the Rising Star, which he would have won. That's $20,000 bonus in his AFL contract, plus a $20,000 check from the AFL as part of winning that prize. There's $40,000 that cost him straight away. He was involved in a melee in round 18, 2024. That's $1,250. He was involved in another melee in round 21 of 2024. That's $1,875. And the third offence for a melee in round 23 that year, $3,125. He got fined for the bird in round 2 this year. There's $1,000. In round 3, he instigated a melee. That's another $1,000. And then in round 8, he was found guilty of striking Melbourne's Caleb Windsor. That's another $1,000. Round 14, $2,000 for striking Lockie Fogarty. And now $3,750 for engaging in rough conduct towards O'Halloran. So that's a total of $68,000 that it's cost him in things he's actually had to pay and money that hasn't gone into his account because of incidents. It's an extraordinary amount of money.
It is. And I think if you look at them in isolation, they don't seem a lot because they're well remunerated for what they do. But as a total, that is a lot of money.
Yeah, and you wouldn't notice it chipping away at it. But I was looking at, instead of getting, so you can work out what he would have earned this week because under the AFL CBA, that you know what the first and second year players are earning. So he's on $190,000 per year base plus $4,000 per game as a top 10 draft pick who played more than 18 games last year in his second year. $190K plus $4,000 a week. So he would have taken home after tax this week $4,706. But he loses $3,750 because there's your pay. That's not tax payment. That's real payment. So he would have gone home with $956 in his account rather than $4,706. Now, he's got all these other endorsements going everywhere else, but eventually he's got to look around and go, geez, I could have a lot more money in my bank account.
So where are we at with Harley? So Andrew McQualter has said, look, we're working with him on these indiscretions on the field. Clearly he's going to be a player who lives on the edge. It gets the most out of him. He likes the contact. But there's a point, I think, where he's probably crossed it. He's crossed the threshold. He needs to just just pull this in a bit, rein it in a bit, I think.
Yeah, earlier on in the year, I went back and had a look at every single free kick that he'd given away, and there weren't many that were incorrect.
Yeah.
Like
they're all legitimate
They
free
were all
kicks,
legitimate free kicks. There were a couple where it was he holding him, was it a push off, or all that stuff. So there were a couple where you could debate whether or not, but a lot of them were just blatant, shove in the back. Or holding and slinging someone to the ground. The holding the ball ones, I think the Eagles will live with because he's taking on the game. And you can, as a fan, you live with that as well. You go, well, he's trying to do the right thing by the team, burst through that tackle like he did last year. He's getting caught, whatever. But the downfield free kicks, the pushes in marking contests which aren't necessary, or the high
all of that stuff. Yeah, I think the push and shove's fine.
Yeah.
You don't want to be bullied out there, particularly against GWS because they like doing it. You got to stick up for yourself. And if you flipped it and he didn't react, then we'd be having a go at him. So I think there's a time for it.
Yeah,
but he just overstepped. He oversteps.
One of your heroes, Dermot Brereton, always used to say, is there a reward for the effort that you're putting in terms of, do you pay the price here to get something back later on? So he's saying, might belt someone in the back of the head. And you go, well, that player won't be standing there next time. I don't see any of the Harley ones where there's any real benefit long-term for him. Short-term pain, long-term gain, Brereton would say. There's no short-term pain in this situation. It's no long-term gain in this situation. It's just the pain the entire time because no one's going, I'm not going to stand in that position anymore. I'm not going to not tackle you. I'm not going to not annoy you because you're going to react.
I don't think there was much value in Dermot running through the Essendon huddle.
No, there wasn't a free kick that got given away then either.
Fondly about that because he says, I get halfway through and I'm looking around, there's Duckworth over there and there's Merritt over there and there's Madden there and Watson. I thought, I probably shouldn't have done this.
No.
He gets to the other side, somehow gets to the other side of the huddle, runs over to the Hawthorn huddle and the coach, Alan Joyce, is waiting for him and he looks at him and he goes, cowboy stuff, Dermot. Cowboy stuff.
Dermot loved
we loved him for it.
Well, you did, but Harley needs to make sure that he's not an easy target for the opposition who go, you know what, we'll get stuck into him and he will give away a free kick at an important moment of the game and we'll get the ball back and it'll be so important. So that's the sort of stuff he's got to wheel back and I don't reckon he can afford to keep getting fined either.
No, he can't.
He is one of those guys who is on the 3 strikes for the umpire contact, so he's got to make sure he doesn't get another one of those and eventually these sorts of things do build up because that's a long rap sheet of things where he's just going, that's not too bad. Oh, that's not too bad. Eventually they become bad.
One of his teammates, Elliot Yeo, has been incrementally increasing his training loads. I was there this morning. He did not much at all. And that came on the back of him being on his early morning radio program where he said, I'm not sure if I'm going to get back this year. Is it really worth squeezing the lemon a little bit more? They were his words. So I'm not sure if we're going to see him again this year. And I guess when you look at it, what's it worth? I mean, is it worth rolling the dice with him this year, or do you just try and get him 100% fit for the off season?
There's no point getting him fit for this year. What's he going to do? Come back and play 3 or 4 games? He's going to have to come back through the waffle. We talked about this with Oscar Allen, didn't we? When he went down, is there any value in it?
I still think if you can play 1 or 2, I still reckon it's a game of footy. Still, you want to win it.
Yeah, but you want to win them when they matter, and they matter in the first half of the year when you can set up your season. And I'd be really worried that if he came back and did anything and got hurt and missed November as a result, well, what's the value
that's my concern.
Of getting a game in August if you're not going to be right for the start of preseason? Get him cherry right for the start of next season, and then you can have a midfield where Harley's in there with Elliot Yeo. Harley will have a better preseason. Elliot Yeo will have a better preseason. Elijah Hewitt will have a better preseason, and they can have an actual crack at it because he's not going to have a good crack at it.
Normally I'd like them to play, but I think in his circumstances, I'd err on the side of caution. Get him 100% right, bring him back in. Just on the point you raised before about the umpire contact, I'm interested in your view on it, being an umpire yourself. I'm not really comfortable with Matt Rao's stance on this. He clearly uses the umpire as a shield to separate from an opponent.
Yeah,
I'm not comfortable with it, Cod.
No, he needs to change. It was interesting when he announced his contract to the team. The Gold Coast put up a vision, and they always we don't want to tell you the true story. We're going to make it look like I'm up here for a different reason. And he was up there talking about umpire contact and where you can and can't stand before he announced he was staying. I think there's a solution for everyone in the game, and it's better communication between the umpires and the players. Under the 3-umpire system, there was only 1 umpire in the middle of the ground, so you never really backed out straight backwards. You went one side. You gave yourself a chance to, if the ball's kicked to the left of the screen, this team's dominating clearances, I'll end up 5 metres in front of play and give myself a chance to see the next contest. So I'd say to players, I'm backing out an angle over here. Do you need this side? Or should I go to the other side of the circle if you want to set up there? That's the conversations you'd have. Now
so you had those conversations?
Had those conversations all the time.
So why are they not having those conversations?
So now there's 2 umpires in the centre square. So it's a bit harder. And I think they need to be having that conversation. Is if Jared Witts is going to be hitting it with the right hand this side and Matt Rowell needs to be on that side, then I'd be trying to work it out so that the umpire is backing out on the other side of the circle. Because I don't see why Matt Rowell can't be on that other side of the circle. Maybe it's the only reason is because the ball's getting hit that way. But a bit more communication between the umpires when the ball's coming back to the middle and the players so that they know, I need to stand here, can you bounce to the other side? Then the other umpire can flip it around to the other side of the circle as well, and they can position themselves accordingly. Because if that's the only reason why these incidents are occurring, then talk about it. You've got 45 seconds. Matt, which side do you need?
Yeah.
And same for the opposition. Which side am I going to be in the way for? There are times when they won't be able to work it, but a lot of the time I reckon they can. So just talk.
I think we need to protect umpires. So I'm all for this rule coming in. I'm not big on the retrospective stance, though. I think you either wipe the slate clean or you bring it in round 1 next year. Bring it in now. Mid-season stuff, I'm not big on changing the rules. So I don't think if you're on 3, I think it's wiped.
Yeah, I agree because you can't penalise someone differently for the same offence based on what they knew.
Yes.
So Matt Rowell didn't know
that
if he got 4 that he'd end up getting suspended. So if he gets 1 more, he's in more trouble than someone who was on 2 who does 1 more.
Yeah.
Or someone
Just wipe the slate clean, but let it be known. And this is a big shot across the bow of players, and it's clearly aimed at Matt Rowell, but other players as well. But I'm not sure I like him staring down the AFL and saying, I'm not going to change the way I go about it. He's using them as a shield.
Yeah, and a lot of them have. And that's the thing. That's why this rule's been brought in, because I can tell you, when you're not ready for it, like I was cleaned up many times. When you're going backwards.
These players are hard.
And you're going backwards as fast as you can to get out of their way. And when they get you, it doesn't look big on the TV, but when they get you with the shoulder right in the middle of the spine. Who's the biggest player that's got you? Oh, I was cleaned up by, I don't know, I thought it was deliberate. There was a key forward suddenly ended up on the wing and went through me after I paid it for anything he wasn't happy with. Yeah.
Did you report him?
No, I didn't, but I had a feeling that it was deliberate.
Oh, really?
Why was he there in the first place? You get hit by blokes all the time. Like the collisions happen in the game between umpires and players. It's part of the game because you've all got to run around and work.
We don't see a lot of. We don't see most of them.
Don't see most of them. And there's always, sorry, that was my fault. No, you're good. You're fine. Like I didn't see you there. That was your right of way. And that sort of stuff happens all the time. Like Caddy and Robbo Gorman on the weekend.
Yes.
Sometimes you just end up in the wrong spot and you can't help it. That umpire on the weekend was on the fence 30 seconds earlier, outside play on the boundary line, and the ball gets crossed to the other side of the ground. He can't get back there without going through the corridor. Caddy didn't look for him, and bang, they run into each other. That's sort of
accidental. That's okay.
And unavoidable because the umpire had to get back to see it. But the ones where you're backing out from a centre bounce, that's avoidable. But I think it's avoidable from both of them. They can work out, can the umpire bounce from the other side of the circle? Can he get that communication in earlier? Because if Rowell's deciding, I'm going to be over there instantly and doesn't realise the umpire's bouncing from there, well, then he's not going to change their positioning straight away.
So more communication.
More communication will solve a lot of things.
So we're talking about Elliot Yeo overstepping the mark.
Harley Reid overstepping the mark.
I am. Sorry. I think that, do we need to see more of that from the Dockers? We've seen it twice against St Kilda. We saw it at Sydney at the weekend. They're gettable in the midfield. So maybe they need to throw their weight around a bit more.
Yeah, they need their bigger-bodied mids. And this is where they miss Nat Fyfe, and they miss Hayden Young as well.
He's about 2 weeks away, Hayden.
Yeah, he'll have to come back to the Waffle. He was in Sydney on the weekend with them, but I think he'll have to get a bit of match time in the Waffle to rebuild that match fitness. But Jago Meara's return is important because he's a wider sort of body, and Nathan O'Driscoll can go into the middle as well. But yeah, when you put Sarong, Brayshaw, Shea Bolton into the middle, that's a small midfield. So they need to have some bigger bodies who can fight and protect Caleb Sarong, or just work a bit differently. I thought Andy Brayshaw's comments to me in the rooms after the game were interesting, that they're not working together enough. And they remind me a bit of a gambler chasing his losses at the moment. Oh, eventually, if I keep doing this, I will win. And they're focusing on themselves rather than the group.
Yep.
I need a centre clearance because we haven't had one. I need to get my hands on the ball, as opposed to someone going,
Got
you
to
know
work
what?
together to make it happen. Yeah.
Caleb will block, Andy will block, and Nathan O'Driscoll will win the ball. Or O'Driscoll will get in the way of James Jordan on this one, and so Caleb can go after the ball. Because when you go back and watch those 10 centre clearances, there was nothing scientific that the Swans were doing. They just won the footy because they worked as a three in the middle, whereas the Dockers were working as individual blokes in there. So that needs to happen a bit more, where they're working together. And if Sarong's getting tagged, get him to half forward, get Bolton in, get O'Driscoll in, get Erasmus in, get Johnson in, and give them a different look rather than just hoping that it will eventually work out.
It
hasn't worked out.
Significant loss because win that game, they're level on points with Hawthorn. This week's game becomes an 8-pointer.
Yeah.
But now they have to win to stay in touch.
And every single team knows that if when you go into games against Fremantle,
you can get
the centre clearances. So they were down 2-10 centre clearances at half time. It was similar the previous week against St Kilda. So and at half time, Bolton had 3.
But I thought Bolton got them going after half time.
In the first half, he had 3.
Yeah.
Sarong had 4. Clark had 6. Brayshaw had 10. Like, they were getting belted in there. So they've got to find a way to say, if it's not working, let's mix it up before we get to the second half and the game gets away from us.
In-season tournament. A story you broke several weeks ago. It's now, other people are claiming it now, of course, but there's a couple of models been thrown up. One involving premiership points, one not.
Yeah, I hate the one that doesn't involve premiership points, because why would Scott Pendlebury play? Why would Elliot Yeo play? Why would anyone over the age of 30 play? Why would any superstar play?
You've got to be something riding on the result. So we're talking 18 games when Tassie comes in, and we're talking plus gather round, plus your derbies. So you're going to have 2 derbies. You're going to have 2. You're going to have 2 probably Collingwood Essendon games with Anzac Day. And then you probably have a 4-week in-season tournament?
Yeah, so the model we talked about a month ago, when after I sat down with Mark Evans on the Gold Coast, was get to the end of the round 17 at the moment. It would be round 18 once Tassie come in, where everyone's played each other once. And then you have, he wanted 3 different tournaments in 3 different states, if you remember. Funnily enough, it sounds like the Victorian teams are going, nah, we don't want that to happen. We don't want to have to travel as much. And that was the big thing around that with him, that it makes the other teams travel a bit more. But yeah, it just needs to be, I love the concept, regardless of what sort of model you make, or whether it's prize money or anything, but it has to include premiership points, or else you're not going to put your best players out there, because the flag is more important than anything. You're always going to be remembered for winning the flag. You're not going to be remembered for winning the in-season tournament.
It felt like the old night series, and of course, where you had every club, the Waffle and the Sandford clubs playing. Clearly, you can't do that now; they just get belted. But it felt like there was something, particularly when you hadn't won silverware for a while. You could win another cup, and it meant something. So I like the idea of having a cup for an in-season tournament. But I think you're right. I just don't think you would get the. You've got to have something significant riding on it. And I think at that pointy end of the season, you want to win every game.
Yeah. And it's at this point of the year when it's the dredge of the season. Let's face it, it's cold, it's wet, people struggle to go out. There's already heaps of teams that aren't in finals contention. So this is where you play each other once, and then there's something else to hang your hat on for the rest of the year.
Just don't bring back the WOC.
The WOC?
Remember the the night competition, St Kilda. Remember St Kilda?
Oh, the Wizard Cup.
The Wizard Cup, the WOC.
But there can't be that sort of competition anyway, because that was a those sorts of competitions, the mid-season one you're talking about, were knockout competitions.
They were,
so it has to be playing everyone.
Have you seen a more disinterested person than the coach holding that WOC up?
Oh, that was bizarre.
It was bizarre.
Don't smile.
So I'm okay with this tournament. What I'm not okay with is a wild card. I don't like the set. I think it's rewarding mediocrity, but probably a top eight's mediocrity anyway. But it's definitely rewarding mediocrity. And we already have a wild card, 5th to 8.
Yeah, the only reason that you can justify a wild card
fixtures
is because of the fixture being so uneven. So you don't know at the start of the year how the fixture will turn out, and there will be teams that play West Coast, Richmond, North Melbourne more over the course of the year than what other teams in the 8 do. So if you miss out on a top 4 position or a finals position, I suppose, because we're talking about with the wildcard, if you finish 9th because the team that finished 8th played West Coast and North Melbourne and Richmond 5 times and you played them 3 times, that's the difference, isn't it? There's your win. So I can understand them saying we need it to bring, because of that, to reduce the uneven nature of it. But other than that, there's no real reason to bring it in. We saw last year what happened with Fremantle playing Port Adelaide in the last game. If Freo win, they make the finals. So that was effectively wild card at that point because it was on the line. And this year we'll see it again. Gold Coast will be playing in the last game of the season against Essendon, probably on a Wednesday night.
Probably need to win it.
And we'll need to win it for either top 4 position, a home final, or to play finals at all. So that will be wild card-ish. It'll have something riding on it. And I reckon the last game of the home and away season on the Sunday night, from that last round 25, I think it'll be, or round 24, before that Gold Coast game gets played, will be Fremantle and the Western Bulldogs. Because that will decide it as well.
As a proud major sponsor of the Fremantle Football Club, Woodside has accepted the challenge of supporting local footy at all levels, from grassroots to greatness, so it can thrive throughout WA. Woodside, Australia's leading energy company. Cod, did you see enough in GWS's performance to indicate that they can make an impact in September? Should they get there?
Yeah, they've got to get there still. I think they're the ones who are under the most pressure to get there, actually, with their draw coming up.
Yeah.
And, like, they got Geelong this week. They could easily drop that.
Pretty good record against Geelong.
They've got the toughest draw. I reckon they've got the Swans, and the Swans aren't going to be easy for the rest of the season. Like, they looked really good the other day. So I think if they get there and they've got all their players back like anyone, you can.
No Hogan, no Taylor at the weekend. And I know they were playing West Coast, and it was all over in 20 minutes. But just like the way they were moving the ball, I like the options they have. Finn Callahan's a good player, and my goodness, that handball is such a weapon for them.
You were at the game. I was watching it on telly. So what did you think? Did you
I think they can cause some absolute havoc in September. They're the number 1 team for meters gained by handball. So I was really interested to see them live and see how they use it. And through the corridor, it's damaging. It can cut you up. So if they get there, I reckon, look, you don't want to be playing them.
And that run and gun style is always so dangerous that when you get
they've got several
September.
options too. Halloran's a good player. Darcy Jones is a good player, but Finn Callahan, he's
a jet.
And you're pretty hard to tag Finn Callahan. He's a big boy.
Yeah, that's what we talk about when you look back on the Freo midfield, that they aren't tall enough to be able to push off and work their way through space. When you've got Tom Green and Finn Callahan in your midfield, you can burst through quite easily.
Now, I'm going to have a whinge here. Watching Hawthorn and St Kilda is watching a Ross Lyon coach game is one of the most painful experiences you can do in the AFL. That game was just reduced to, it was just a slog, and it was almost unwatchable.
It's the way he likes the game to work,
it's the way he likes.
But this is the frustrating thing, isn't it? It's always, and this has been the case forever and a day. Ross Lyon coach games look like Ross Lyon coach games. No one can find a way to stop him from doing whatever he wants to do. I find that.
Well, they didn't win. They didn't win.
No, but the game still looks the same down way the whole time.
It felt like Hawthorn's just going to win this by 10 to 20 points, but it's a shocker to watch.
Yeah.
It reminded me a bit of Sydney early days. I think it was Demetrio who came out and said it's ugly footy, and they went on to win the flag. So St Kilda aren't going to win the flag this year, but it reminded me a bit of that.
Yeah, they are difficult to watch.
As a coach, your job is to win.
Yes, yeah, absolutely it is, or at least stay in the game for as long as you can. And that's what Ross has been able to do for a long, long time, is stay in games if they're not going to win the game.
Thirsty Camel mailbag time, Cod. This week's special, Carlton Dry, 3.5% cans. Camel Club member price is $52.99 a block. Join up in-store or online today. This week, as always, we'll be giving away a $50 digital voucher. Thanks to Thirsty Camel. Get your questions into TheWestSport at wanews.com.au. Please include your mobile number at the bottom of your email, as we'll send you a digital voucher if you're a weekly winner. Hi, Quarters and Cod. Thanks for responding to my email last week on conferences. I still think that the second half of every season is a grind and change is required. Maybe a shorter season is the way to go, just on the back of what we've been discussing, Cod. Anyway, my question this week is about the footy media and how it's sometimes difficult to keep up with their position on issues. At the moment, I'm hearing a number of commentators suggesting that the stand rule isn't working, that it's the worst rule ever introduced and it needs to be removed. I'm pretty sure a year or so ago, most commentators were quite supportive of it. I suppose my questions are, how can we get more consistency from commentators? Why do they change their opinion? And why do so many just follow suit when some of the more respected commentators change their position? Cheers, Maney.
If you look at the way people have changed on the stand rule, their position has changed based on how the rule is being interpreted and how it's being coached as well. So everyone liked the stand rule, I think, when the game was quite open and someone was standing the mark. Now people aren't standing the mark, they're pulling back and you're allowed to do it. Therefore, the stand rule doesn't actually exist anymore. So I think the rule itself is a problem. In terms of the way that is being asked, you're allowed to change your opinion.
Yeah, of course you are. We do it all the time.
You see more and more things over time, but I can see why it would also be frustrating that people go, oh, we love the stand rule, now we hate the stand rule. Oh, we love this player, we hate this player. Sometimes you're not as informed as what you would like to be at the start, or sometimes it's that the coaches change an element of the game. So what you were seeing originally, now there's a different look to the game. So you are entitled to change your opinion. Sometimes you have to, but sometimes you just make it an idiot out of yourself at the start.
Sometimes it's frightening when you hear yourself 2 years earlier. Oh, a great example with me is the Twilight Grand Final. I was staunchly against the Twilight Grand Final. Now I'm staunchly for it.
That's amazing.
I've changed that's on the back of seeing some NRL Grand Finals, and I just believe it's time. Hi, gents. Are you able to please confirm if there's any neurological evidence that helmets prevent concussions? If so, and if the AFL is serious about prevention measures, why isn't it compulsory for every player to don the lid instead of the most ridiculous suspensions like Paul Curtis's? Another point, I agree that the bye round should be 1 week only. Mid-year, with the under-18s interstate competition being the centrepiece, the AFL now have the draft as a spectacle over 2 nights. Surely getting intimate knowledge of prospective draftees is the precursor to the draft. Love the pod. That's Mike from Adelaide. Love his last point. I agree. There's too many of them, and I'd love to see a under-18s tournament in the middle of the year. Just on the neurological evidence, there isn't yet, but it's watch this space. No, helmets don't prevent concussion because the concussion itself is your brain, basically in simple terms, the brain that sits in a sack is rattling around in your head. So it's the impact that causes it. However, I did a story last year. There's a industrial designer by the name of Graham Addy, and he's done this in his Fremantle workshop. He's designed a head, and I'll just get it up. He's designed a helmet which works on a nodal impact attenuation model. It's a structure of balls which have partial rolling action. So you can make the helmet rotate, not the head, if that makes sense. So you slide off the ball, so it can actually mitigate it. So I think it's being trialled in junior football in WA. They're also trialling mouth guards with chip elements in them so they can record head trauma, etc. So they are doing a fair bit of...
The Dockers have trialled it as well. The Dockers have someone wearing that at training.
The mouth guard or the helmet?
No, the helmet.
Yeah.
Every couple of months you see a Dockers player run out there with the helmet on, and that's just to see how it works for them. They don't spend the entire session in it, but they are trialling it to see the comfort levels, and they report back with to give the
It's very light. I've had it on. It's very light. Now, there will be people who will say, nah, don't believe in him. It can't prevent concussion. But I think it's worth trialling. If it can reduce the impact by 1%, then it's worth it. It's worth our junior kids having them on their heads, I think, at the very least. So let's just see what the evidence is after 3-4 years of trials and go from there, rather than just saying, nah, it's not going to work. It can work.
If there's anything that can help, then it should be looked at.
Yeah.
And the more investigations they can do, the better. Because the reality is, Angus Brayshaw didn't wear a helmet at the start of his career and got heaps of concussions, started wearing a helmet after multiple concussions and still got his career ended due to a concussion. So you're never going to be perfectly protected from a massive hit, but if you can reduce the likelihood of getting knocked out or having your brain rattle around in your head, then that's a good thing.
I think their lab tests say it's over 90% certain impact. So a front-on hit, it's just not going to do anything. But from where the impact can roll off the helmet rather than shake your head, I think, they're saying 90% plus in laboratory testing, but of course it's different to out in the field, which is what they're doing now. So let's just wait and see what the evidence is. You have been listening to the WestSport.
Before we finish, Quarters, we have one before we finish. Okay. Can we go back to a question that was asked last week?
Yes, do.
Which was about the horrible grounds that we've ever been involved. And so last week in the podcast, people might remember, we talked about our favourite grand final moments.
Yes.
And we talked about some of the grounds we've been on which have been absolutely disgraceful over the years. And I raised the Heath Shaw moment, where the smother of the century, and I raised today out an old Ivanhoe where the ground had algae out in the middle of it. And lo and behold, I'm watching the footy the other day, and there's Heath Shaw on the TV in the new ad where we're talking about famous grand final moments. So there's the moment which we talked about.
Yes.
And it was out at Old Ivanhoe. It was out at Charlesworth Park where they shot the commercial.
Is that right?
So that ground, I'm sitting there going, we've talked about the ground and we've talked about the moment.
Very observant of you. Pick that up.
Yeah. And I was like, they must be hearing us. They shot it months ago. But yeah, that was Chelsworth Park, which it looked in beautiful condition at the time as opposed to 30 years ago when it was a mud heap.
It does remind me of my favourite ever match review. It was written by a guy who wasn't a sports scribe. His name was Barry Dickens. I don't know if you remember him, but he was like something of a poet in Melbourne. He used to write for a paper called the Melbourne Times, and he had a column on the back, and he used to write about sport even though he didn't know anything about it, right? And it was under the banner religion. So it was it was a bit of a PISS. Anyway, I'll never forget. He went out to watch St Kilda play Fitzroy at Moorabbin, and this was his introduction. Best introduction ever written to a football reporting on football. Moorabbin, full stop. Stone cold pie, full stop. Mud, full stop. That's all I needed to know about that particular game.
Yep. Very, very good. Oh, so we all love these sorts of moments.
Oh, we do.
I jumped into my head watching that Heath
Well done to you. You've been listening to the West Sports Show. We are brought to you by Tab Touch. Got the touch? Download the Tab Touch app today. What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. Remember, you can watch or listen to this podcast on YouTube Music. Leave us a rating and a review, and don't forget to follow this podcast so you don't miss an episode. Cod, 2 weeks in a row, I've got the clean sheet. Probably been 2 pretty easy rounds. Fremantle Sydney was a tough one at the weekend, but
I missed that.
I got the 9-fer.
Well done. Congratulations.
That's 2 weeks in a row. I'm
surging
mounting
up the table.
A very familiar late season charge at the top of it. Now, I'm in the first column. You want to be in the first column.
Well,
you're up the top, aren't you?
I'm near the top, but having given away those tips on the weekend, I might be falling down the ladder as we go. We'll have to see how we go for the rest
thanks
of the
for
year.
joining me as usual on a Tuesday, and we'll look forward to talking to you next week.
Always a pleasure, Quarters. Chat then.